The Sony MDS-W1 is a dual deck mini-disc recorder, but unlike most dual cassette recorders, both of the decks can record. So as well as the obvious disc-to-disc copying features, you can also relay record, so when the disc in deck B is full up it can start recording on the disc in deck A. Or you can record simultaneously on both decks. Now the decks operate independently, so for each deck you can select which input on the back it records from. So for example, I can record from the analog input on deck A, which I've just got connected up to the audio output from this little camcorder, while on deck B I can record from optical input number 2, which is connected to the CD player. The machine has 2 optical and 1 coaxial digital inputs, and of course a stereo analog input, all independently selectable on either deck. Or you can of course record the same input on both decks if you want to, so you'd end up with 2 identical recordings on 2 different mini-discs. You can also select which deck sends its output to the output connector. So another thing you can do is you can play a mini-disc on one deck, connect the output into some external processor, while recording the output of that other device on the other deck. So you can effectively copy from one disc to another, but passing the audio through some external device. Of course, you can also copy disc to disc internally. So I could, for example, on deck B, select as its input the output of deck A. And that will record via an internal digital link between the 2 decks. However, that doesn't result in a perfect copy because the audio is decompressed and then recompressed again, so there's generational loss. It's essentially the same as copying between 2 separate mini-disc machines linked by a digital audio cable. You can also do the same thing, but using an analog internal link, although quite why you'd want to do that I'm not too sure, but it's an option and would effectively be equivalent to copying between 2 separate mini-disc decks connected by an analog audio cable. Now neither of these methods will result in a perfect copy because in both cases the audio will be recompressed. However, the MDS-W1 has a trick up its sleeve. If I put a disc with something recorded on it into deck A, and I put a blank disc into deck B, I can choose disc to disc and move either the entire contents of the disc or an individual track from one disc to the other. And if we do that, now that's actually copying the A-track data directly from deck A to deck B without recompressing it at roughly 4 times normal speed. So the new disc is a perfect copy of the original disc with no loss of quality. Now the catch with this is that any content you've moved in this way is deleted from the original disc, so you still only end up with 1 copy of your audio, but it's on the new disc instead of the old disc. However, there is a simple trick that you can do that will prevent the MDS-W1 from erasing the source disc after it's written the copy, so you end up with a perfect duplicate of the original disc. So when this operation finishes, I'll show you how to do that. So the move operation has now finished, and as you can see we have our duplicate disc in deck B, but deck A is now showing as a blank disc. But the machine hasn't actually erased that disc yet. It'll only do that when I eject the disc and it writes the table of contents changes. So I'll eject deck B, that's my new copy. But I won't eject deck A. Instead of doing that, I'll put the machine into test mode, which is done by holding down the output button and the deck A clear button while simultaneously pressing stop on deck B. It's a bit fiddly. So output, clear, and stop. We're now in test mode, and all I have to do is exit test mode again, which I do by pressing the sync button, and the machine will eject my original disc unchanged and go into standby. So we now have our copied disc and our original disc both intact, unchanged. Now, the question I'm sure you're asking is, can you copy a pre-mastered disc in this way? And unfortunately the answer is no. If I put a pre-mastered disc in, you can see the disc-to-disc options and editing options simply don't appear on the screen. So no, you cannot copy a pre-mastered disc losslessly. Of course you can copy from a pre-mastered disc onto a blank disc, but only using the lossy methods I mentioned earlier. Apparently it is possible to modify this machine internally so it thinks that any disc you put in is a recordable disc, and then it will allow a duplicate to be made, but I haven't tried that myself, so I can't vouch for it. If you want to give that a try at your own risk, there are instructions out there on the web how to do that, but that's not something I'm going to try on my machine, I'm afraid. Anyway, there we have the Sony MDS-W1, very versatile dual deck mini disc recorder. Thank you very much for watching.